So my name is Nancy Haase, Deputy First Selectman here in Simsbury, and I want to welcome you to a special edition of Community Conversation. And it's special because not only am I joined by Selectman Sean Askham and Selectman Mike Paine, but our guest today is Senator Kevin Witkos. And so thank you, Kevin, so much for being here.
Thank you all for inviting me.
Absolutely.
No problem. Thank you.
And so we're here, it's the month of October in Simsbury, and absolutely a busy month. And I think you've probably already been here, there, and everywhere. And in the next 4 weeks, you'll be more places than you can count.
Sure.
So,
Counting down the days.
Counting down the days. So it's hard to believe it's been a whole year since we were all doing that ourselves last year. But, tell us a little bit about what's going on, where you've been, and what you're hearing from folks out there.
It's super busy. It's a great time to be in politics if you like this kind of stuff. You know, Memorial Day or Labor Day for me was the kickoff of the campaign season. And Simsbury started with Septemberfest. We had a great time over the course of the 3 days. And going out doing door-to-door with Sherry Cook, the other representative, Selectman who's running for state representative. So she and I have enjoyed going door-to-door, meeting with folks, and people have a lot of angst on their minds. You know, they're saying, what are we going to do in Connecticut? We've got to have some change.
Absolutely.
Because they know that one-party rule in Hartford is not working.
No, not at all. So what are some of the top things that you're hearing when you're out talking to people? What are the major concerns?
Well, the major concerns are the budget, and I think that's going to occupy a lot of our time. During the next legislative session, if Sherry and I are elected, we hope, and we're asking the Simsbury voters to support us at November 4th at the polls. But we're looking at a $1.3 billion deficit in the first year and a 1.4 the second year. So that's a lot. And you've had the governor who's, again, pledged not to raise taxes. We know he lied about that the first time. And people are skeptical that he's going to do it again. And people are just being taxed out of their homes and out of their businesses. So that's concerning to a lot of people. It's concerning to me, too.
Well, and we can speak to that firsthand when we deal with our budgets here, because what you guys do there certainly impacts us here, and sort of that holding harmless the towns on certain things really doesn't translate to some of the constraints and strains that we're seeing. And not only when we do the town budgets, but folks personally, as you mentioned, tax increases that have been going on, and that $50 or $55 we were promised certainly was not going to do much for us to impact that.
No. And, the Connecticut Conference of Municipalities sent out to all the current incumbents and politicians and those that are challenging a list of unfunded mandates that they'd like to see repealed. And I'll have to tell you, all of those were brought forward by the Republicans during the last legislative session, and they were summarily dismissed upon party lines.
Wow.
So we've tried to address these unfunded mandates. However, the other side just doesn't want to do that. They have an addiction to spending, and I think with the change of the legislature, at least from the governor's office down to the House of Representatives and the state Senate, we can effect some change by electing more Republicans to office.
Yeah, absolutely. At least start some good debate around those issues.
Or more independent-minded thinking, so people just aren't the blind piper following. And that seems to be the course when you see party line votes on these issues, which shouldn't be. From the Valley, we all represent the same type of people, so we should be voting the same way. It shouldn't matter whether you're a Republican or a Democrat. If you're representing your constituents that way.
Absolutely. And it should be noted, and obviously we all know this, but for the folks at home, there's a lot of coordination that goes on between the local budget and the state budget. We have many priorities here, and we work with Senator Witkos on trying to get some of those priorities funded at the state level. One of which is the senior center, obviously, that you helped us support to try to get some legislation in on that. So,
and last year we actually were very successful in getting it out of the Finance Committee. It didn't make it to the end. We couldn't cross the finish line with it, but we had a bill that authorized bonding for up to $5 million for a senior center, and that would have been very successful for the seniors here in town. I know they're very active, and they've pretty much outgrown the section at Eno Hall. So, and our population is aging. Let's face it, we are one of the highest per capita growth of seniors. That's dye my hair, but I know you were looking at my hair, Nancy.
I'm about to cross the 50 line, so I know.
So I got my AARP card the other day, and I refused to open the mail. I just tore it up and threw it in the garbage.
We're in denial. But so Sean, you're right. I mean, it is working with you and trying to help out, what we go through at the town level is just so important, and we appreciate the hard work that you've put in there to represent Simsbury. And I think, from what I'm hearing from a lot of voters, they understand that's exactly what you're doing down there for them. So we certainly are supportive of them putting you back down there to continue to go to work for us.
And I'm not afraid to stand out against my own party too, and I think that's why I received the endorsement from the Independent Party this this session, so my name will appear on the ballot twice.
Yeah.
Because I look at the specific piece of legislation, I say, how is it going to address my constituents? And if it's something that I think that the folks in Simsbury would want, then I'm either going to support it, and if I didn't think they would want it, I would vote against it. I don't care who proposed it. If it's good legislation, it ought to pass.
Right, right.
And I think
Yeah.
they like to hear that.
Right. Well, and yeah, you're down there, and you know, within the state of Connecticut, you're representing our town, and of course other towns within your district. And there's pressures for passing bills that you know might be of more priority to a city than they are to our town. But you do have to, and you do take into consideration how that impacts us, and we appreciate that.
And most recently, a piece of legislation that was important to a city that would be the towns would be against is the reduction of the drug-free school zones.
Right.
Where there was legislation, it's come up twice now,
Right.
that they want to take, it's a 1,500 say circle radius around a school and a daycare and a public housing facility, and shrink that to 200 feet. So what that means is the drug dealers can deal their drugs closer to schools and daycares without the harsher penalties.
Right.
Now, why anybody in the world would vote for something that is beyond me.
Right.
But that is something that the urban legislators were asking for, because the proximity of the schools to their neighborhoods, everybody that dealt drugs would have the harsher penalty. Well, you know what? Don't deal drugs. I mean, that's my answer to it. So I have been consistent in my work as a former police officer to fight against that. And I know we had a group that met last week and took a pledge, and Cheryl Cook, who was running for the 16th House District seat, has taken that pledge that she will never support a reduction in the drug-free school zones. That's very important for the people to know, that we have legislators that want to allow drug dealers to get closer to our schools.
Right. Yeah, and I you know, from the few folks, since this has been in the news recently, that I've spoken to, are just appalled at the idea that that would be considered at all to be a good idea. And I think, you know, we talk about good debate, but there's things that don't deserve debate. I mean, it's just not an idea that would work for our community. It would put our children at risk. You know, you're talking about budgets put a strain on the police to have to deal with things like that. It really just doesn't seem like it makes sense at all.
Simply not consistent with the values of communities like this and others, and you know, I'm sure.
What I tell people is go out and look at the legislators' voting record. They may be nice. You're not going to elect not a nice legislator,
right?
Because otherwise you wouldn't get elected in the first place. But what's important is to see how that person, he or she, has voted in the past, and you have to go and look at that. And if they're not voting the way their district would want them to vote, then they should not be returned to office.
Right.
And that's the most important thing. Educate yourself on the issues and learn about what that candidate stands for.
Right.
Absolutely.
Well, and a lot of the laws that are passed or that ultimately become laws and regulations actually are a lot deeper than many people think. I'm amazed at how many pages are in a proposed bill and everything else, and it is deep. You really have to read into it, and it may be other ramifications that hurt things. I was amazed in our budget, as much time as I've spent watching what goes on in Hartford, how impacted Simsbury was, usually negatively, with additional dollars we need to, frankly, raise from our people, and how little of the dollars we send to Hartford come back to us.
Right.
Well, unfortunately, I think for every dollar Simsbury sends to Hartford, you get about 8 or 9 cents back at the most. So you're more than paying your fair share of taxes in this state, and it's going to redistribute it out. And you know, some of the things in Hartford where it's going aren't working. So there needs to be a change.
And that, to me, is the single biggest reason to get away from this one-party rule.
And throwing more money at the problem without finding out what the cause of the problem is, the root of the problem, isn't going to change anything.
Absolutely. So what else in this past legislative session came up? Other areas of focus that you had?
Well, this session I'm running on, my campaign this year is putting families first, because I think that's the core of everything. You want to have a decent job, which translates to jobs in the economy, making sure that businesses can grow and succeed in our state, and have everybody would have the opportunity to get a good paying job. We want to start lining up our college curriculum, so those employers are saying, hey, listen, we need qualified workers, we'll take them, but we can't find them out there. So let's make sure that our colleges have the curriculum that our employers are asking for. So there's a big movement through some funding we just did through the Next Generation Connecticut that starts to align science, technology, engineering, and mathematics. And that's what we're hearing from the employers out there that they're looking for. So we've begun that through a nice investment through our University of Connecticut school system and our other colleges. Other things like in Simsbury, most recently, the Solarize Simsbury.
Right.
I was part of went to the ribbon cutting on the International Skating Center. And that was a program I was very proud of. One of probably my most proudest moments in the legislature when I helped write Public Act 1180 with Senator Fonfara. We did it on a he's a Democrat from Hartford. We did it on a bipartisan basis. And it created the system which allowed our state to flourish in the solar industry or the wind industry, basically green energy to flourish in the state of Connecticut. So I'm proud to see that that was a project that came to be of something that I had a hand in.
Yep. And Wednesday I think we have a final report on that for Simsbury, because we just went through the summer of solar ice. So from what I understand, it was a success. We had many homes, I think over 85, I believe it was.
So,
80,
yeah.
85.
Yeah.
80, 85 homes sign up for it.
655,000 kilowatts,
Kilowatts,
megawatts.
right.
I think it's
Yeah.
kilowatts.
It's kilowatts.
We didn't build a nuke in the corner.
Yeah.
Of town.
No, I'm kidding.
But I think the number of people that came out and became ambassadors it must be heartening, for you to see that, because you've done something that people were just responding to. They were waiting for it. They wanted it. They enthusiastically took their volunteer time to go out and say, do you know about this program, and you should enroll or get involved in this program. And so I think it's just had such a great impact.
And the
here.
best thing about it is that it goes beyond just the little savings that you'll save in your own home, but the bigger footprint that you're not using, you're using less electricity,
Right.
which everything that causes to generate the electricity, your carbon footprint is shrinking, so we all benefit by that.
Yeah.
I think for me, it's a great feeling.
Yeah, the carbon foot, that was part of the statistics we got.
Yeah.
I don't remember the number, but it was a significant impact in just those 85 homes. So.
And the jobs that were created in the solar industry, it was phenomenal.
Yep.
Thousands of jobs in the state of Connecticut.
Oh, that's fantastic.
Absolutely. So what else are you seeing?
Well, one of the things that I hope to work on this next legislative session is an internship/apprenticeship program. I was stonewalled by the Department of Labor last year, and I put my amendment on every bill because the Office of Fiscal Analysis said for $54,000 you can create 300 to 500 jobs. That's what they estimated. And I said, this is a win-win for everybody. It allows college kids or technical high school kids or kids going from school to work programs to get into a apprenticeship, well-paying apprenticeship, which is regulated by the state. There's safety rules in place, and then they can start building their trade and move through the journeyman process. It takes about 6 years, but then they become a licensed tradesman in the state of Connecticut for $54,000.
Wow.
Yet we have, as you know, other policies in the state of Connecticut that pays $1 million a job, which will never happen.
Yeah.
And only because it came from a Republican was that stalled. And so that's another reason why I hope that we have some change in leadership in Hartford, because an R or a D after your name should not matter.
Right, right. And that's
Agreed.
the kind of thing that gives, coming from, I'm now recently an empty nester, so I've been through that whole college enrollment process, but one of the things that was amazing to me is it seemed as though there weren't enough options out there for kids. So, those that aren't necessarily a 2 or a 4-year college, but they're looking for trade work and different things like that. So I think giving the options and meeting the demand that's out there for the industry is just extremely important. So that seems like a no-brainer. Hopefully you'll get the support you need for that
I hope
forward.
so. And next year I hope to work closely. I'm working with the Connecticut Farm Bureau. That's a huge industry in the state of Connecticut. It's a $3 billion industry, is farming and agriculture in our state, and they have some impediments created by state government that I think that if we can remove some of those, we can even expand and enrich farming in our state. And at the end of the day, it'll be good for all of us.
You're in the right place to be talking about that with our 33% of
Our
open space preserved
space.
and a lot of agriculture going on here. And we always have fun once a year. We have to renew those leases with folks that are leasing land in town locally to farm and wanting to do it organically. And
The town farm, yeah, we've got.
The town
But
farm,
I tell you,
yeah.
I represent 11 towns in the Senate, and I've attended yours at the farmers markets, and they are so well attended, and people have so much fun going to those, usually on a weekly basis, and people want to buy locally grown produce.
Right.
And the more we can expand on it, the better I think we are as a society.
Well,
Yeah.
and we need to, whether it's the farm or your technical program, society is evolving, and we are going to need people to be plumbers, electricians, mechanics. It is so much technology now. I'm amazed, and the farmers, we should encourage them. I mean, Simsbury used to have a number of farms, of which my family used to have one of them, and it is no longer an agrarian town.
But in order to do that, we have to get our spending under control in the state, because the folks that are graduating from high school or from college, there's no way they can afford to live in the state. Not the way it's priced now, and just the economy, just the cost of living in Connecticut is so high. One of the worst statistics I heard over the campaign trail was 49% of the population said if they could leave today, they would.
Right.
And that's sad when residents make Connecticut their home would leave if they could.
Well, and even the work you're talking about doing with the, the STEM program and doing that integration of college to job. I mean, that's great, but people have to be able to afford to live here in order to be able to work here. So there's certainly, I hope people understand that connectivity to that, and when they're heading out to the polls this November to vote, that they, can make that change so that we can put all those pieces together.
I was running a pilot program. I had offered a bill for create a firefighter village. And so many of our communities in Connecticut, especially in the northwest central region that I represent, are volunteer fire departments. And these young folks that staff the fire departments, that the interior fires, ones that carry the hose inside and put out the flames, they don't want to live with mom and dad forever. But when there's no place
Mom and Dad don't want it either.
Right, mom and dad probably don't want them either. That's why you're an empty nester.
That's right.
So,
Change the locks.
the kids want their own place, but there's no place that they can afford. Who can afford, if you're just out of college, $1,200 rent, or if you're renting a house, $1,500 plus a month? So my concept was the town would donate the land, and the housing authority would build 1 and 2 bedroom condominiums or apartments, and you had to be an active firefighter to live in those. And so and it would be subsidized, so you could have a $400 a month rent as long as you were an active firefighter, so you could maintain your service on the fire department, and the town gets a benefit, because if we ever had to go to a paid service for everybody, it would be what a mandate that would be to the municipalities.
Catastrophic on municipal budgets.
Right.
It absolutely would be, but we haven't addressed that yet in Connecticut, and a lot of communities have moved to a paid ambulance service. I know Simsbury has some paid, but it's mostly volunteer. And so that's great that you have volunteers that step up and do that, but the call volumes are increasing, as is with the fire department. So we've got to think long-term on some of these issues, and I think that's a benefit that, while it's a small investment from the state, it's a large benefit. Small investment from the state, but a large benefit to the communities that it serves.
Absolutely.
So you've got under 4 weeks to go, and I know there's plenty. You said you're heading out somewhere tonight, and you've got plenty of other places to be. And I just think being out there and talking to people, how are they reacting to some of the things that you're talking about when you speak about job creation and keeping budgets fiscally tight and all those kinds of things?
Sense of frustration.
Yeah.
They thought it would be a change before, but this is not a change that's worked out well.
Yeah.
And it goes back to one-party rule. So until we change that, I'd like to see the Republicans take control over one of the branches of government, and either in the General Assembly, either the House or the Senate. We have to flip 4 seats in the state Senate, and all of our candidates are working very hard. As the chairman of the Senate Republican Campaign Committee, I've been involved with all of our races. And I will tell you, all across the state, people have donated to Republican Senate candidates and are out door knocking for them, sign waving, phone calling people, and trying to wake people up and say, if we don't do something to protect the taxpayer this time, it's all over, because those that have will have left.
Right.
And it's just those that are the getters on the receiving end that will stay. And it's just unsustainable. And that's not even talking about the $70 billion we have in unfunded liabilities for pension and other post-employment benefits. So you don't get a lot of that. But we're not going to let that sway us. We're going to work really hard, and we're responsible to the people. Folks can reach me via email at senatorwitkos@gmail.com, or go on kevinwitkos.com on my website.
We'll make sure and get that all.
I'll put that on there.
Yeah,
but I always love sitting down and talking with folks about different issues. And sometimes the best legislation comes from the folks that you just have a sidebar conversation with,
right,
and you introduce it next year. Example, Michael Jennings is on
he's a great guy.
From Simsbury here. He had spoken to me about a bill with handicap parking. I introduced it, and Michael came up to Hartford, lobbied for it, testified in favor, and it is now law today.
That's
so
great.
It's great,
That's
and
awesome.
that just came from a sidebar conversation that Michael and I had in Hartford. So one person can make a huge difference.
Yeah.
So we're always open for, open government and just communication.
Yeah.
And I commend you, Kevin. I've called you at times with my concern about bills or some thoughts, and I know other people that have, and how quick you respond to them. And that's great. It really is to have our guy in the Senate who really cares and is connected.
Sometimes it takes a little bit. We have myself and my assistant. There's two of us for 93,000 people. So sometimes it takes a little bit to get back to you. So please be patient, but we do our best.
No, I know you do.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Well, and that holds true for folks from all parties. I know that because I know, you've worked with local business members that are members of the other party on bills and put those in, and it's, that really matters because, as you said before, it doesn't matter if we have an R or a D next to our name. If it's a good idea, we should do it. We should pursue it. So, I think that's fantastic.
It doesn't even pertain just to the town. Another resident from Simsbury, Bob Duguay, came up with a gift basket piece of legislation to allow wine to go into gift baskets to be sold. That was previously outlawed in the state of Connecticut.
Yep.
But people in other states, businesses in other states, could send their product to our state, which was allowed. So imagine that we
couldn't send it out.
strangled our own businesses.
Yeah.
And Bob brought it to my attention, and it took us 3 years, but we got it done. So that is now allowed under Connecticut state statute. And so many businesses, besides Bob's, here in Simsbury have benefited by that. It's great. And that's just by people picking up the phone and saying, Senator, can I get a meeting with you? I want to talk to you about something. And we put words into action and we get it done.
Yeah, it's fantastic.
That's great.
We should celebrate those guys. I'm not sure a lot of folks know that what Mike's done or what Bob's done with your help to, make those differences. So maybe there's a happy couple out there receiving a basket. And they're not quite sure how they ended up getting that. But
Cheers to Senator Witkos
that's
tonight.
right.
Hear, hear.
It happened right here in Simsbury. So.
Okay.
But Mike, you mentioned, I know, being down at the Capitol. You go down there often, and
Yes, I do.
Yeah.
And it always amazes me. A number of people are well-intentioned, but they don't take time to understand the impact of some of these bills and how it affects a business or a town or anybody else. And I've always loved it. You go up there and I'll start talking to you, and it's like, okay, Mike, why are you here? What's going on? What's the bill? Why is it impacting you? How is it impacting you? And can it be changed? Because, I think most of the bills are put in with good intentions. I don't think there's any ill intent. But a lot of times they truly don't understand what a particular business has to do.
Sure.
Years ago, you and I talked about, it was drug and alcohol testing, and we had an employee who had lost his license, and I ended up having to pay unemployment because he lost his license off the job. And it was our fault that he lost his license, and I had to pay him unemployment. And it was just like, why?
yeah,
It's a federal law. It's not even my option. I don't have a choice, and we don't have that option.
Yeah, it brought to my attention. A lot of great bills come from Simsbury because we addressed that, and
Yeah.
now Mike's business would not have to be charged with the
Exactly.
unemployment and that came from Mike Paine of Paine's Inc.
Hey,
Every once in a while, I get it right.
But it was good,
Yeah.
and it's only through when people say to me, "What bills are you doing this year?" I don't feel like I have to go to Hartford to do bills every year. I don't think that's a matter of success, whether how many bills of your own you got passed, but it's the bills that really don't make any sense, that interfere with somebody trying to run a business in the state, and especially small businesses in the
Yeah.
state. We know that that's our economic driver.
Absolutely.
Why can't we remove that impediment if we can?
Yeah.
And it's just because people just aren't aware of some of those situations. But as soon as they come up, great stuff, and we
Yeah.
make it happen.
yeah.
No.
I think for me personally, and again, I say out there talking at folks, we talk about the top ticket and all the way down, and Tom Foley, just having that business perspective in there and just looking at things in a different way is so desperately needed. The experience that brings, because as you said, you're out there, your priority is family, but family means jobs and being able to take care of your family and all of those things. And when you have businesses that are impacted like that, and any cost that you incur means maybe one less employee that you can.
Sure, it comes out of my bottom line.
Yeah.
And frankly, it also hurts the state because I'm not as profitable, and they do tax us on our profit.
Yeah.
So not that I'm overly upset about having to pay more money in taxes, but at least it gives me an opportunity, and then I can help my people and benefit them and everything else, because I can't give people more money if we're not making any money.
Yeah.
Tom Foley's a great guy. If you get him into a room with a small group of people, he has one of the best personalities. He wants to learn about the different issues, and he listens to what is said and starts thinking about how to resolve the conflict and chart a better course. Now, if you've seen him on the debates, he's not very good, and he's not a politician, so
Yeah.
he can't
Yeah.
go off the cuff.
Yeah.
And a slick politician can almost go off the cuff, or somebody that's experienced in public speaking can do that. But Tom is pragmatist. He will analyze something and chart the best course to get out of that.
Yeah.
And that's what we need in Connecticut right now. We
Yeah.
need somebody who can look at the big picture, find a solution, and chart the course to get us out of that.
Yeah.
And I think he's our best choice for governor.
Yeah, that's
this
really
year.
it's often misunderstood, and I'm glad you brought that up because everybody kind of pins on these 4 or 5 debates for whether it be the governor or your race or other races, even our own, and that's a scripted pre-selected bunch of questions that may or may not represent what you actually believe in, and it's to Mike's point before, you really got to go and look and. Does this person resonate with my values? And we never agree with each other 100%, right? I mean, we're all different.
Sean, I'll tell you, my opponent's running. She says that she went back and reviewed my record, and I've been in the legislature and the Senate for 6 years now, and she found 2 votes out of the thousands of votes that I cast that she has a difference of opinion on. I'm always prepared.
That's impressive.
Well, I said that's a pretty good record. I'll take
I
that
bet you
anytime.
I'll disagree with you on probably 4.
Listen, I don't even agree with myself 100% of the time. I change my mind, but I'm always willing to stand up and explain to people if they give me a couple minutes as to why I voted the way I did on a specific vote, and maybe educate them on the nuances that are behind the scenes that maybe a perspective that people didn't think of. So sometimes it's not always black and white.
No,
and one word in legislation makes a big difference. If a shall versus a may.
May.
And as you all know, as elected officials yourself
Yeah.
on the town side, on the town level, it makes a
But
big difference.
I mean, you make a good point, and it's your experience. I mean, your life experience that has made you such a great senator to serve
Thank
the
you.
town of Simsbury, and there really is no replacement for that. And we talk about that with Cheryl all the time too. I mean, you're living it every day, and you talk about things like public safety and. Issues like that. So it's important that that experience is there for our town, and so I think we've benefited from it for years, and we hope to benefit from it for many years to come.
Well, thank you. I hope so. Remind everybody to get out to vote November 4th.
That's right. That's right. And we are actually coming to a close now, so we just want to thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you.
It's my pleasure. Thank you for having me.
And we want to thank SCTV for the opportunity to. We've had a lot of good conversations on our community conversation show, and this certainly is most important at this time of year for folks to know who you are, what you're all about, and what you can do, and how important it is for them to cast their vote for you on November 4th. So thank you.
Thank you, Nancy.
Yeah.
Appreciate it.
Great,
Thank
great
you.
to have you.
Thanks, Sean.
See you as always.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Funding for Simsbury Community Television is provided in part by contributions from viewers like you. Thank you.